Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, as always, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. We have a really great show for you guys as OTAs wrapped up. We're going to talk about some key takeaways, some additions on offense we can look at, and even look at this ball on the defensive side. But first, got to welcome you in. I'm excited.
You don't have to.
We have to because you're the comment reader.
That's true.
You're the master of the comments. You select who gets highlighted.
That's true. Are we just jumping right into it?
Well, at first I want to see how much you enjoyed OTAs, how excited you are for minicamp, and then we can get to the fans.
Okay. Yeah.
Let
me talk first.
Yes.
No, I think that what Sean Payton said after the second week of OTAs is true, which is that they're just a little bit further ahead than they were this time a year ago. I think a lot of that has to do with the quarterback position. Last week we talked a lot about Bo Nix. I thought he looked really impressive on Thursday in the Broncos' second open OTA. Did have a late interception. Talanoa Hufanga made a nice play on the ball, but otherwise a lot of connections to Cortland Sutton. RJ Harvey, second-round pick, made a terrific play. Would have been a long touchdown in game conditions. So I thought the connections with Sutton, with Harvey, Bo Nix just feels to me to be in command of what he's doing. And I think you've heard guys talk about that, the potential that's there. So that stands out, and I think that permeates the whole team. And then you hear what Sean Payton says, which is that we're further ahead. And so when you can be further ahead at this point, all it does is help you training camp. It doesn't guarantee anything when it's time for the season to arrive, but it does help. And I think we saw early last year the Broncos were still figuring some things out. Hopefully this helps them get out to a fast start here in 2025. And listen, I think one of the other takeaways is just that there's going to be some competition, right, on this team, and there's going to be, we talked about it last week, more for roles maybe than jobs in certain places. But all that said, there's not like a ton of question marks right now, and so you're just kind of watching them get ready, and I think that's encouraging. After some of the previous years, there's been some holes or some question marks. I don't feel that the same way right now, and I think that speaks to how this team has been built.
Definitely enjoying the process, I feel, has been the fun part of OTAs. And Sean Payton had mentioned it, bridging the gap and making sure that the rookies, they don't have to be there right at this second, but the hope is that they can bridge enough for the gap that by the end of training camp, they're exactly where they need them to be. And he talked a lot about, Jahdae and how he's developed and his kind of mindset and the fact that he feels he can give him more than another young rookie that plays his position. So it's really interesting to see how this team has just developed over the first couple of weeks. And I feel like it's been really stressed that, look, it's hard to really get a gauge on anyone right now. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Everyone looks good, looks healthy, looks focused. But until they really kind of get going, right now it's just a kind of preliminary thoughts on everything.
Yeah, this is, again, it's voluntary. Next week will be mandatory minicamp, and we'll see a little bit more, though Sean Payton said the practices will look similar to how they did in OTAs. But I think you're right that this is just, you're setting the stage for training camp when you're at it every single day, these longer days. We know Sean Payton's philosophy on preseason football, like the time to really dive in is coming up shortly, but we're not quite there yet. But I do still think that big picture overall, you can just look at the fact that the quarterback position is settled and then see that impacts everything, really.
Yeah, and I think the process, what he's been able to do just in their offseason program, making sure like the weight program was good, guys coming in, building that camaraderie on their own time, being around each other. So I think all that's going to really lead into a fun mini camp coming up soon. So let's see what kind of weight we have in those comments. I know you've been excited to do this, right? Get back to the people, see what they've been saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Mario Augustin or Augustin. Not sure if A is a middle initial or if that's just the start of a name. Aloha Friday, Elisa, Aric, and Broncos Country. This is from last week's episode. Much mahalos. Thanks for all your hard work during this offseason and keeping us Broncos fans updated. I'm so excited for the upcoming season. We're finally moving in the right direction toward greatness. I believe this will be a very special season and that we have the pieces of our puzzle complete. We're taking this division and smashing our opponents. Have a great weekend and go Broncos. I like the optimism. I like the confidence.
Aloha. Are you a puzzle guy?
I puzzle from time to time. I wouldn't call myself a puzzle guy, but I've puzzled for sure. Strato Static says, y'all do great with your podcast. Thank you. I actually left that one myself. Bill Bell, 9462.
That's fun.
Yeah, I think I kind of read that right. Says only one possible goal for this team in 2025. You know what that goal is. I think I get what this person's going at. He said, assuming that Bill Bell is a dude, my two favorite draft picks were Robinson and Jones for the defense. So Q Robinson, Savion Jones. We heard DJ Jones talk about those guys. He said that Savion Jones is going to be special at some point. And then obviously we know, I would think Q Robinson could be a special teams guy early on and just adds to that depth there outside. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you got to see those guys. I don't know if you have to, but I wouldn't be surprised to see those guys contribute kind of in a rotational way, especially when you look at a guy like Savion Jones. He's got the frame. You talk about defensive line where you rotate a lot of guys. It'll be nice.
Some good praise. He said that one thing he liked about him is that he just wants to learn everything. He's so eager to kind of just pick up anything and everything. And that's what DJ Jones said about Savion. So that's good to know.
Exactly. And then Spectre Crew says, awesome video. Love you guys. Enjoyed all the Hufanga coverage and insights. Let's go.
Huff.
Huff.
The USC
I like
guy.
Huff.
It's a USC guy.
Oh, that's true. He's, as I've said, I'm excited to see him play and just kind of fly around and all that. Let's see if we got a few more comments here.
All right.
This is from our schedule release show. It's been a couple of weeks since we did comments.
Oh, yeah.
So this is...
He built him up.
Yeah, we built him up. Stacy says, just want to say, love your show. My son is a Cowboys fan. Him and I are really excited to try to make it to Denver to watch my Broncos kick their butts. LOL. Go Broncos. Somebody replied and said, sorry to hear about your son. That's funny. That'll be a good game. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah.
Dak healthy, George Pickens, CD Lamb. If you haven't listened to the week by week schedule breakdown, people liked it. Stratostatic. Wow, they get two.
Oh.
I didn't even mean to do that. This is the only Broncos show I like. Realistic, not just rah hype. Thank you.
We're not all about the rah.
That's
Give
true.
the real.
Any other good comments? Someone said, where's Suze?
Aw, Suze is doing good.
Yeah,
We love Suze. Big Suze.
Who knows where? Who knows where she is? Anyway, that's all the comments for now. Leave a comment on YouTube if you want to be featured in an upcoming show. We'll answer your questions. Chime in on some analysis. Yeah.
You're going to start the hashtag word Suze Watch just because you said that.
I haven't heard from her in months.
Well, we're really happy that we've heard from the Broncos team because obviously it's really exciting just to hear from the guys, especially the newer guys that came in. Evan Engram spoke earlier this week just about his decision to come to Denver and kind of his mindset, and we'll get to him a little later in the show. But one of the biggest things that I really got from OTAs was just the way that I saw the receivers really be in rhythm. You kind of see Marvin Mims hitting in Troy Franklin and kind of those guys, and then the reliability and the consistency of Courtland Sutton and what these weapons can do for Bo. And I think it's important to kind of highlight that because as you go into this season, you can't help but to look at how the last season ended. And I feel like Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin were really kind of getting into the rhythm of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think each of those guys is worth talking about for a second here. Courtland, I would say what excites me most is that last year he was obviously incredibly valuable to Bo as a rookie. And now you have year two where you're going through the whole offseason where you know Bo's the starter, and all that matters is Bo and Courtland getting on the same page and finding these little nuances. And it reminds me of, I'm not saying this is who they are, but like Peyton Manning spending multiple years, right, with Demarius and Emmanuel, and you can say, hey, on this route, shallow it off a little bit here, or why don't you make your break here, or hit it, you see all those signs that Manning used to have with like Marvin Harrison where he touches helmet once and okay, I'm running a different route. Like, I'm not saying it's at that point, but you can start to develop these things. And I saw a moment on Thursday where it was routes on air, Bo threw it to Courtland, throw, catch. It was great. Then they came back and they talked a little bit about it, and you could tell. I couldn't hear him from where I was standing, but you could tell it was about like, okay, how do you want me to run that route? Where do you want the ball to be? And those things I think are valuable when you get to the season and you're in crunch time and it's third down. And think about that play. I had kind of forgotten about this play. I loved it at the time, and then I kind of forgot about it as we got away from the game and into the offseason, and I just saw it again the other day. It was that third down throw in Kansas City where I think it was like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, something like that. Bo gets pressure immediately, finds a way to get outside the pocket, and he delivers this throw to Courtland Sutton where only he can get it. He's coming across the field, and it set up what should have been a game-winning field goal, and it was terrific. And I think in retrospect, it actually was probably one of Bo's best throws the entire season. And I think that chemistry, that connection that so you can go to somebody in crunch time is really important. And I think you saw that even in OTAs on Thursday where, they're practicing in team and it's these tight windows and boom, Bo's getting Courtland the ball. So I would think you're going to see a step even from what you saw last year, hopefully, between Bo and Courtland. But I think you're right. You can't underestimate how important that connection is and kind of the value that Courtland provides there. So Courtland, when I think of guys that stood out on Thursday, Courtland, to me, that connection with him and Bo was right at the top of the list. You mentioned Marvin. He's open a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I think we saw them use him in a variety of ways. I think we'll continue to see that. Troy, Sean Payton mentioned that he's made all sorts of explosive plays this offseason. We haven't necessarily seen as many of them. But I'm interested to see kind of how they get the ball into his hands because Sean talks about, hey, when he gets in open space, he can go now. So Troy Franklin is a guy that we keep hearing is going to take that step. And if he can do that and you add that to Mims and Courtland and Evan Engram, who, like you said, we'll get to, all of a sudden that becomes a good group. And let's not forget about Devon Vele, right?
Yeah.
He made a really contested, tough catch along the sideline on Thursday that I thought was just a really spectacular catch. And again, the type of thing that you are accustomed to seeing from him, which is wild considering he was just a rookie last year. And then you add in obviously Pat Bryant. He saw a little bit of action, a couple catches on Thursday. He's a guy that I'm excited to see too. And like you mentioned with the rookies, don't have to be there right now. Just can you get there? So this receiving core is going to be tough to earn reps. It's going to be tough to earn targets. But I think that's good, right? You want high quality group. And like you mentioned, I think we're seeing good things from the receivers right now.
And after practice, Sean Payton talked specifically about Courtland can be a big resource for Bo Nix.
Look, he's a resource for the team from a leadership perspective. And there's a work ethic and a toughness that, and a consistency day to day that I think is a great benefit to a young quarterback.
He said it perfectly. It's a great benefit for a young quarterback. Another great benefit is having another playmaker on your offense, and I feel like that's what Evan Engram really brings to this. And you hear Sean Payton talk about, like you mentioned, Marvin Mims. He talked about Troy Franklin being able to be a part of explosive plays. But when you look at the body of work of what Evan Engram has done over the last couple of years, he's a guy that you really kind of see immediately what he can bring to Denver. You see what he can develop. You see what he can add. And I think they joked around with this Joker thing, right? But I think one of the biggest things for Evan Engram is just the want to be here. And he mentioned it. You look at the coaching staff, you look at the quarterback, you look at this franchise. This is where I need to be. And I think that's a really big benefit.
Yeah. And, as Bo Nix said, he's been around and kind of getting to know these guys, making sure he's ready to go. Evan Engram is, I feel like, one of the kind of X factors for this season, right? Like, I think you know what you're going to get with a Courtland Sutton. I think you know Marvin and Troy are going to take these steps, hopefully. You've got a solid guy in Vele. Hopefully Pat Bryant contributes. Obviously Trent Sherfield coming over as well. But Engram, to me, I think there's like a baseline of what I think I expect him to be. But if he can go to what he was in 2023 when he had 114 catches, that would be a single season Broncos record. And he's averaging more than 50 yards a game, which is more than any Broncos tight end has had since Julius Thomas made a Pro Bowl back in 2013. And you're talking about even his 17 game averages are good enough that like it's more catches in a year than any Broncos tight end has had since Shannon Sharp back in the 90s. I mean, so you've got kind of like, okay, well, does he have, 50 catches for 500 yards? Like, if there's a baseline there, but then if you get like the elite version of Evan Engram, and he said it himself, like if he can go out there and make plays with the ball in his hand or be the guy he knows he can be, I think you unlock a whole other element to this offense because we know Sean Payton likes to use that tight end in the slot. I think he is too fast for linebackers, athletic enough to beat a corner or safety. And he's not built the same way that a George Kittle is, but he's big enough that like against a corner, he can still win those.
Yeah.
And we've seen him elevate and make those plays. I think that, and I'm excited to see how we don't quite know yet, like how is he going to be used in that creative Joker way.
Yeah.
But if you can get the ball in space in the middle of the field, that's probably one area where the Broncos didn't attack as much last year, right? Of just getting the ball in space and letting a guy run. And if they can do that with Engram, and he does have an 80, 90 catch season, or he can challenge 800, 900 yards. And again, I'm just kind of throwing out numbers here, and there's only so many passes to go around. Like you expect Cortland to contribute, right? So like we'll see exactly
every
what
play just a pass.
Right. We'll see what the numbers are. But if you get, and even if the numbers are lower, but he's just dominating it or has a major impact on games, think about what happens if he becomes that elite player, and now all of a sudden defenses can't worry as much about Marvin Mims or Troy Franklin. Now that deep ball is going to be available. Or you can't worry about Cortland Sutton as much on third down, so it's easier to go to him on 3rd and 5. Or you decide, hey, we got to take away Court. Ingram's singled up with a linebacker. That feels like a pitch and catch, right, on 3rd down and short. Or, you got to account for all these guys in the passing game, so you can't stack the box as much. Okay, now R.J. Harvey maybe gets more room. And so, to me, Engram, I feel like, and knock on wood, and he's talked about it, got to stay healthy, got to stay out there. There feels like a baseline expectation of what he should be pretty reasonably, like even if he just goes out there and has a quote-unquote normal season. But if he can have a 2023 type season, or I think 2020 might have been the other year that he made the Pro Bowl, if he can do that, this offense all of a sudden becomes very, very dangerous because the ways he'll impact the offense will elevate guys around him. So I can't wait to see kind of how that all plays out. And you were right at the beginning there that having somebody in the middle of the field on 3rd down in the red zone, that helps a young quarterback. And so even as Bo takes that step into year 2 and has more experience and looks more comfortable and all that, it's still helpful to have a guy like Evan Engram with that playmaking ability. So yeah, I think he's going to have some plays this year where you're just like, man, wow. So hopeful that works out that way. Excited to see him on the field.
Yeah, and Evan Engram spoke specifically on being called the Joker and what fans can expect to see from him.
That's a cool thing just to embrace. Sean talks about it a lot. It was a big part of the pitch coming here, and the fans are great here, so just was kind of embracing that narrative a little bit. But I definitely see that as something that's got to be earned with the way I work, the way I come in and learn the offense, and gain the trust of Sean and Bo and the rest of the coaches and the rest of the players. So, I think we got a bunch of jokers, honestly, on this team that can have a great role in this offense. So it's definitely something that I like to embrace, but something I'm going to go earn too. I like to call myself a cleaner, a guy that's going to come in every single day and do what he's asked at the highest level possible.
It's nice to see them just being so willing to buy in, and these are veteran guys that are pretty established in the league, and they're still coming in like, I have to earn this. I have to earn my team's trust. I have to earn the ability to be called the Joker in this offense. And I think that's really exciting to see from the offensive side. And you look at the defensive side of what this team did last year, and then you got even better with, not only the draft, but free agency. The development of just these young guys has been really impressive, specifically with Jahdae Barron. Sean's comments mentioned that he's someone that you can just trust, you can put a lot on, and he's really developed over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and some of it with him is going to be like live action and just consistency. And not saying that he's not a consistent player, but just like you're going to get tested as a rookie playing either across from or in the slot when Pat Surtain's on the other side, right? Because teams are not going to throw at Pat Surtain still. Yeah. Eventually, you might get to the point where, like, if you throw at Jahdae Barron enough and he's picking off passes or he's playing at a high level, that they think, man, we might have to go at Pat Surtain.
It's like pick your poison at that point.
Right. But I don't think we're there yet. And I think that you're going to start at a point where, like, Riley Moss and Barron and Jaquan McMillan, like, they're still going to see passes initially. And so it's going to be a prove it preseason. It's going to be a prove it early part of the regular season for these guys. But I do think that so much of what we heard about Pat that made him good was the on-field intelligence and like the way he watches film and the way he knows what's coming and kind of just being this technician. Yeah. And you're hearing some of the same things about Barron and that he's able to process these different roles, these different coverages, responsibilities. And listen, when you get down in the red zone or third down and teams are motioning guys, or you're, running some different alignments and you're trying to confuse a defense down there. Steve Atwater, our dear friend and Hall of Famer, he always says when there's motion, at least one guy on the defense is confused and doesn't know what's going on. And so when you have guys that are smart and know what's happening and you can take that element out of it, that's a big deal. And it also allows Vance Joseph to have more options when we get to the season. If Barron was not able to learn both outside corner and slot corner, then you might have to decide, hey, we're going to keep him outside, right? And then that maybe limits your versatility when you get to a matchup with maybe this team's got a really good slot receiver. Well, we can't put Barron there because he doesn't know that spot. But if he knows both spots, you can say, okay, let's slide him in there. Or, maybe he's going to normally play in the slot. And one week you have Dallas, for example. Maybe you like the matchup between Pickens and Barron, right? And you say, well, let's move him outside so that he can stay on Pickens. And again, I'm just speculating, using names here. And I have no idea what the actual plan is for him. But I think when you game plan, it gives you more chess pieces. And we kind of hear Vance Joseph talk about that sometimes, about the versatility mattering. So I don't know that we've seen like the highlight interception yet. And granted, we're only out there for 2 of the 6 OTAs. We'll see more in minicamp next week. So maybe there'll be more to kind of talk about Barron in terms of an on-field play standpoint. But I think when you hear Sean Payton, we know does not hand out compliments easily. Certainly not to rookies. And so when you hear him talk about, I mean, it's true, right? Like he wants these guys to earn it. He talked about at the end of last year, the importance of Bo Nix earning a spot. And you're seeing Barron get reps. And so the fact that he's talking highly about his on-field intelligence and you're seeing him get action, like it's only the second week of OTAs, that means something. And so you mentioned at the beginning, like, we're just getting started. It's like a lot of this is just big picture stuff, but I still think there's clues that mean things, right? And one of those clues is that you see Barron in there and you hear Sean give him these compliments. And so you can start to say, okay, well, maybe this is a guy that could be featured early on, even though he's a rookie. So that's kind of what stands out to me about Barron. Yeah.
And you look at this defense in its entirety. In 2024, they were 3rd in points per game, 7th in total yards per game, 1st in sacks, and tied 7th in takeaways. And a big part of that was DJ Jones. And we were able to hear from him after the conclusion of OTAs this week. And he just seemed really excited to be back and being around the guys. And he had a lot to say about the newest additions on the team. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga.
I'm glad they're here. Y'all going to see how special they are. Y'all going to see why they brought them here. I played with everybody they signed, so I'm excited for everybody to see them. They're game changers. Just go back and watch the film. Don't even watch highlights. Just watch them play after play, and you'll see. They're special, both of them.
A lot of wise words from DJ Jones, and it's kind of nice that he's kind of played with a lot of the guys that are coming in now. And DJ, getting to Dre and Talanoa Hufanga in a second, DJ being back, I think, is a really big key signing. We talked about it when it first happened. And I think just seeing him on the field, just the energy that he brings to the guys and the leadership he brings to the guys is a big help. And I think when you add that into the monsters that are continuing to add to this defense, it's going to be very scary come kickoff.
Yeah, DJ's a guy that I think the further we get away from free agency, people talk about like Engram, Hufanga, Greenlaw, talk about Barron and RJ Harvey in terms of draft additions. And I think it's maybe been forgotten that DJ was a free agent signing, right? Like he's not mentioned in terms of like the big offseason acquisitions. And I get it's because they retained him, but I think about the flip side is that if you weren't able to keep him, kind of what would this look like right now? Would you have had to change your free agent approach, and maybe you don't get a Greenlaw or Hufanga, or maybe you're not able to draft Jahdae Barron because you've got to fill a hole in the center of that defense? And I think he's kind of this, especially on the podium. I know not always when playing, but like he's this quiet, kind guy, and like just kind of chill, right? And like I think you sometimes forget that in the middle of that defense, he is a very important piece, and was a big reason that. And it's tough on the defensive line when you're the only guy or there's not a lot of talent around you. And I think you've seen that in the last couple of years. Zach Allen comes in, JFM, and like when you've got multiple guys and you can bring guys in waves, it really helps. But I think if you're a Broncos fan, it's worth remembering, like, hey, that was a pretty big deal that they were able to find a way to get that done and bring him back. And he's not going to have like the splashy stats, and he's not going to have a 10-sack season.
He does all the dirty work, you know?
Exactly. He plugs up holes. He takes on blocks and allows linebackers to get downhill, allows other guys to get the tackles and get the TFLs. And he'll toss one in every now and then. And he had a fumble recovery a couple years ago against Cleveland, right? Like he still makes those plays. But there's also just like a tone that he sets, right? And so that quietly this offseason was a really crucial signing to be able to bring him back to Denver.
Well, he mentioned it as well in his press conference that there are no egos in that room, and everyone is kind of just buying in. So as you mentioned, everyone gets to eat and everyone gets to have fun out there because that's the best way to do it. He said a player with a free mind is dangerous on the football field. And I thought that really stuck with me because when you talk to any of the guys, they don't play with this idea of like, I have to do this, I have to that. It's like, no, we're going to go out there and as a unit, because we know what our plan is, we're going to hone in on the details and we're going to get this done. And I think when you add a Greenlaw and a Hufanga, I think it's good to let them play freely, right? It's good to have them just fly around the field the way that they do. And I think Hufanga had an interception or something in OTAs. So I think when you're excited to see your new guys come in, excited to see what they can produce, and then you have the new guys saying, I need to earn their respect. I need to earn this because all my winning ways don't matter. I'm here to impact this team. And I'm really excited to see. I know you mentioned multiple times that you're really excited to see Hufanga play because he just has this presence about him that they're game changers. I mean, DJ said it. They're both game changers.
Yeah, and we know, based on what Sean Payton said earlier this year, that the interior of that defense, kind of that spine, if you will, that they wanted to get better there. And they made free agent moves, interior defensive line, inside linebacker, safety. And we know how good they are outside and at edge, like it's proven, defensive end even. But that middle, I think they wanted to take a step, right? And so with Hufanga and Greenlaw, you get these dynamic, aggressive, violent, downhill players that are going to make big plays and I think big hits and really help set the tone for this defense. So
to start fast, I feel like that was something that was really a key point from last season.
So we'll and obviously when we get closer, we'll talk about week 1 and the Titans and all that. But when you see Anthony Richardson's hurt out in Indy, so he may not return until some point in training camp, which you would think would put Daniel Jones kind of in that pole position there. And so you look at those first couple and obviously, it's going to be a tough stretch earlier in the year with a lot of road games, but it feels like a schedule where you got to start fast and you got to set the tone. And this defense, I'm sure, will be ready to go.
Well, next up is minicamp, which we're really excited about. What do you expect to see from that as we wrap up?
I just think it's 3 more opportunities to see these guys. I don't know that you learn anything earth-shattering, but hopefully get to hear from a few more players that we haven't heard from yet, kind of know their mindset going into the offseason. Knock on wood, you want everybody to finish minicamp healthy and ready to go into this part of the offseason and ready to come back at training camp. But I think just the continued reps help, whether it's on offense and Marvin and Troy taking steps or RJ Harvey continuing to get comfortable or the running backs competing in general. I think all those things will be interesting to watch, but it is just a few more practices, and then it's time to not take a break because you're still got to be ready to go. But
no days off,
but we're getting close to the real thing. And last year, there was just a lot of unknown, right? And this, I feel, is more, it's not like unbridled, like jacked up out of your mind, but it's like, man, I'm ready to see what this looks like. And it's not concern or question marks. It's like, man, this team quietly could be something. We're getting closer to like week 1. Everybody's running out there, home opener, Titans. We're getting closer to seeing what this is all about, so that's exciting.
It's the calm before the storm. Well, all right, guys, there you have it. Another episode of Altitude Advantage. We appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you guys comment. Let us know your thoughts on just the excitement for the season, OTAs, minicamp, all that great stuff. And if you missed anything, make sure you go to denverbroncos.com because we have you covered there with all the coverage. As always, I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, across the table from our comment reader and hopefully mind reader, because you're gonna let us know what's going on as we continue on. Aric DiLalla. Once again, make sure you visit denverbroncos.com for all the latest.